Welcome to the 4 o'clock work session of the Bowling Green Board of Commissioners for October 15th, 2013. We have 2 items for discussion today. The first is a progress update on Hennessy Way realignment and downtown signal expansion projects. Mr. Febo.
Thank you, Mayor. Every 2 years, the City of Bowling Green does a citizen survey that asks our residents what are some of the issues facing our community. Always number one is the need to improve traffic flow. The survey reveals that most of the issues are related to state problems, but that hasn't deterred us from doing what we can to improve our local roadways to move citizens and visitors throughout the community. Every year we put in money where we can to improve traffic flow. Today we're here to talk about 2 exciting initiatives to fulfill that mandate given to us by the citizens. The first deals with the Hennessy Way realignment. This year's budget we have money to improve that intersection over near the Corvette Museum, and Jeff will speak to that. We're pretty excited about it because it represents what we value. One, it's a high need. Second, we're partnering with the state and bringing other people's money into play. And third, it involves private sector collaboration. So the second involves our continued commitment to modernize our signals, because you can have the greatest roads, but if you don't have modern signals to move people through the community, it doesn't help. So Jeff and Melissa are going to present those 2 projects that we have budgeted in Sunshine, the details today for you. Jeff?
We'll start out. Melissa's going to do the main part of the presentation, but she's been working with these projects in much more detail than I have and can provide you better information. But as Mr. Febo said, transportation issues are vital to City of Bowling Green, and the better our transportation works, the better it is for everybody. We feel like we're at a point in these projects where we'd like to bring you a status update and then gain input from you guys to see where we need to go as we take these projects forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Melissa. I'll jump back up any questions or whatever that you have through the process. But Melissa Kanzler, City Engineer with the Public Works Department, will take it from here.
Thank you. As Jeff said, we're at a point where we feel like we just kind of want to get a little consensus, and then had a few questions on the traffic signal project for you guys before we move forward. I plan to be pretty brief and just be here for questions if you have them. In review, basically a few years back we looked at Hennessy Way, a need of realignment to correct some poor access management, as well as the past few years there's been increased traffic in that area, so we've really noticed a severe degrading of the level of service at that intersection there in Hennessy Way and Corvette Drive. Funding in review was approved in the FY13 budget. The city approved $250,000 for improvements to alleviate traffic congestion, and then the state also has committed $500,000 to this area because of its proximity to a state traffic signal. Also, we're working closely with the adjacent property owner whose intentions are to develop a large tract of land that we will potentially realign through regarding the need for that land to complete our project. Just to get you familiar with the area, if you're not already, Corvette Museum is here, GM plant here. Hennessy Way is this, what I call a frontage road here. And then our connector between Louisville Road and I-65 right here. In 2000, basically the frontage road here, we know we have problems along Scottsville Road with this type of configuration, especially at these intersections where they're so closely spaced with a traffic signal or a main light. In 2009, Fruit of the Loom occupied this building, which just added to the congestion. Peak times of the day, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, lunchtime, they stack up here. And we have a stop sign right here. So basically, they are at the mercy of anybody coming down Corvette Drive to stop and allow them out to use the signal. On top of that, McDonald's has located here. So you can imagine people coming in the morning and trying to get back out, or in the PM, for the loom traffic. And then here is the large tract of land I mentioned that currently is being developed, or the preliminary phase of development. So we just see this intersection getting worse. So we thought now's the time to look at that. The state has actually retimed the signal to improve it somewhat, but they've done about all that they can do. So they're looking to us to work with the adjacent property owners to come up with a solution. Here is what we have at this point. It's still conceptual. There's not a whole lot of wiggle room to change things, but we basically showed Hennessy Way to realign further and intersect with Corvette Drive further from the traffic signal. And what this will do will allow the traffic to stack and queue along Corvette Drive and allow for better access to that signal, allowing it to operate better and basically keep traffic flowing through there a lot better. The road is a 2-lane roadway with a turn lane proposed here to handle the traffic going left, primarily going left out to the signal. The old Hennessy Road would remain open. However, in order to maintain safety and handle the traffic, we are proposing, and I've shown an enlargement here, to reconfigure the intersection currently there to be a right in, right out. And what that means, we use this in theory in a lot of places, but we want to construct this to force people to do this. When they come in off of the state at the light, they can still go into the Hennessy Way that exists today. They can still access all those parcels, McDonald's, and everything that Fruit Loom if they're going there. But when they come back out, they can no longer make that left. And basically that eliminates all the conflict points that are there today, and it will make that flow a lot better. What they will have to do to go back to the signal is come here and go out that way. Provides a safer situation and allows us to handle the traffic better, and encourages them to use a new road that we're building and putting all this money into.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
How, and I'm just thinking out loud, if I'm at McDonald's and I'm not from here, how do I know to go that route?
Well, we discussed this. You can still get in to McDonald's.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming, say you're traveling, you can still come in and go here. To get out, you would have to go here. Now we haven't got this far down the road in design, but in talking with this property owner, basically one property owner owns all of this. McDonald's is right here. We want to try to promote some kind of ingress-egress to reach McDonald's from the new road. Like I said, we haven't got to that point yet, but that way they would come out here and easily exit.
I'm a little like Bruce. If I'm not from here,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to have to be
Some
significant signage.
Mm-hmm. And we can do that. I've seen it, I can't place where, but similar situations where it's not readily obvious how you get out. So signs would have to be in place. And I think that's something that we definitely want to discuss with this owner so that we provide that access. Because we did work with McDonald's already in lieu of a traffic study to improve this. We knew nothing that they could do could really fix the problem. So they contributed a small amount of money that they would have spent on a study to go toward this project. So we want to make sure we accommodate them. So we do have that in mind. We are proposing, I didn't mention, with this right in, right out. Currently, this property on the corner here has access all across the corner. We would want to create a little island with grass to kind of keep people from entering that intersection from that corner. And as it stands, it's the liquor store there. They have access onto Hennessy so that you can easily get in, and they have access onto Corvette Drive so you can easily get out, with or without this project. They should not be
They have
impacted.
multiple accesses now that
They do.
creates a confusion for the intersection.
They have open access in the corner, which people kind of just come out in the middle of the intersection. And we'd like to, with this project, kind of better control those cars and create a situation that we would impose on any new development, basically. And we would like to push access points as far back as we can. And they already have an access here and access here. So we feel that they have plenty. And I don't think that this alignment will impact them in any way.
Getting back to Bruce's question, Rick's comment about McDonald's.
Mhm.
What do they say about
We
either of
haven't,
these two proposals?
we haven't gotten with adjacent property owners yet. This is a concept that only this property owner has seen, and Landmark.
So when they located up there, was there any talk with them about
Mhm.
the roadway?
We did talk to them quite a bit about this alignment, and that's why, rather than them paying for a traffic study and coming up with minimal improvements that could help, they put money toward this ultimate goal.
But during the conversation, y'all didn't talk about this proposal here.
We had a line on paper, basically. We showed them this basic alignment. So I do see the need to discuss some type of maybe shared entrance exit point here, which could easily be used this way or this way. Definitely, there's some things we'll have to consider. But overall, and I didn't catch it, I wanted to get a photograph of how this stacks up in the afternoon, but it's bad. And I think the mayor knows. With that said, currently this property owner is working with investors on some deals for some of these parcels you have shown. This is the alignment that we've worked out with them to best accommodate what they have in mind for these lots. Currently, our estimate for the construction is just over $500,000, and again, this is very preliminary. We're currently working out the details of the project now, and with your consent, we want to proceed in getting some kind of agreement together with the property owner, because we will need property, and we are providing them a service with this new road, so we want to work out some kind of agreement so that we can move on to final design. If we do proceed with construction, we will bid that in-house and bid that ourselves and manage that construction in-house. It won't be done by the private developer or anyone but our staff. So,
We're going to build it or just manage it, did you say?
no, we'll just bid it out
Okay.
and then manage the contract. Yes.
Will you explain how the funding works? It says we budgeted $250, the state's agreed to give $500, but right now it's at $515. Does that mean it's only going to be 15 of our money, or does the whole $250 of our money come and then the state's less?
That will be determined, I assume, once we get a final estimate, and probably right before we bid, we'll work out the numbers. Bruce, what do you?
Well, I didn't know it was 500. I thought it was 250, but if the number is 500, then maybe we can shift down towards the other end of what I guess Parker Avenue and realign that like Mac was talking about.
Right, the
too.
state, I know Greg Meredith had also mentioned the other end near Porter Pike. There's an access there right across from the Sonic that has very similar problems. We talked about pulling that road back further from that intersection as well. So maybe this money could be used for that. But we'll come back to you before we obviously go out and tell you what our final design was, and any concerns with property or access we can bring up at that point, and we can talk about that more.
Oh, we'll pass on to you. ACES. Who's ACES? Greg Arnold.
Jeff Arnold. Mhm.
I think is working on the other end.
Okay.
If you have an opportunity to talk to them, if we're able to package it together at one and make the sale to the state at the same time, might be helpful.
Definitely, because the last conversation I had with Greg Meredith was maybe a month ago, and he was still very adamant that they have that $500,000 that's committed to making this work. So I don't see him objective, because it's impacting their signal. Either end, anything we can do to pull people away, it improves their operation as well. So, any other questions about Hennessy Way?
Are you planning to talk to the liquor store owner?
We will, yes, definitely. We've got to work out the details and make sure, we're a go with the large tract of land. Here, we'll have to also talk with Fruit of the Loom, because here's the property line. This is Fruit of the Loom property, so we'll impact them as well. And then we'll discuss with these
I don't
two
think
as well.
Mr. Medlin will have any problem. He's anxious for this to
Is he?
get
Good.
squared away.
Good.
Is-
That's what we like to hear. So.
The big parcel, is that Mr. Browning's property? Whose property is that?
That is the gentleman, his name is Todd. He owns the Total Fitness places in town. Todd, is it Mason?
Yeah.
Todd Mason.
Mason.
Yes.
Couldn't
That's who
think of
we've
it
been
either.
working with. He's very excited about it. I think he's just trying to the timing was a little off, and that's why there's been a lag in us coming to you guys, because he's trying to figure out who's coming and what's coming so that the alignment doesn't conflict with that. Okay.
Will this solve the problem?
I think it will definitely help the problem. We haven't run numbers. I think it's about the only solution to the problem. We can't pull it back any further. That would be about the only thing you could do. There's a large drainage, kind of low-lying area, wooded area right here. So yes, we tried to pull it. Wouldn't have helped much. It gained a few car lengths, but back into here we had so much fill, it was just cost prohibitive. So, all right. Well,
All right, thank you.
real briefly, let me go to this one. This is real short, but in this year's budget, we approved $90,000 to make improvements to the signal located at Normal Street and Regents Avenue. Basically, it's old wooden poles. There's no loop detectors, there's no pedestrian signals, and we had envisioned in the big picture to hit every signal in town and make these upgrades. So Normal and Regents was the next on our list. Since the budget was approved, we have since realized a greater need for this money at the time due to safety reasons at Small House Road and Highland Way. If you're familiar with that area, here's what we have out there now. We have the wooden poles and strand configuration. These heads have been hit numerous times of late. So the only way to improve that, you can kind of see how that's bending. We cannot raise that or tighten that anymore. So we're proposing to take that $90,000 and replace these poles with our black strand poles like we use downtown, not the mast arms, but the decorative black poles on each side, any new pedestrian heads. We already have new loops and a new controller out there that we did last year. And because of the absence of sidewalk, we don't need pedestrian detectors. However, I've been working with a gentleman who cycles through here. And since we've added these loops and he pulls up, he no longer gets a green if no cars pull up. So late in the evening or when there's not a lot of traffic, he doesn't get the green. So we're proposing to add a detector just to make the green go in off-peak times so that the cyclists can cross the road safely. We also intend, as you recall, we have Small House Road widening in the out year. I think way out year. We would like to go ahead. We haven't done any survey work yet, but we would like to place these poles in a position that if that does happen, we won't have to move them again. So I think we need to accommodate one more lane along Small House. So if we can do that with our survey, we will, and place those away from the road a little bit further in the event that we can at least improve this intersection in the near future. So.
I'm sorry, you're gonna put the pole back far enough as for it would be a 3-lane?
Yes.
And in the event of a larger project not happening, a smaller project might be just to make improvements to this intersection.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be
You're all
excellent.
for that, okay.
Jeff and I rode around a couple of weeks ago and looked at a few things, and he had mentioned that, and I was very excited about that idea.
I think anywhere from that point, basically add the turn lane for Small House here, all the way to Campbell Lane could stand for a little help. But I just want to make sure us moving our money for that signal rather than the one at Normal and Regents, you know, and if we feel the need to improve the one at Normal and Regents in the future, that'll be the next one on our list.
Your memo indicated they asked for a 4-way stop, but that's not.
Well, we are making sure that that signal isn't warranted before we take it down, and Mark in our office is doing that currently. One thing that I did realize in talking to Greg Meredith, when they do the roundabout, they will close and detour some traffic through there. So I don't want to take that signal down until the roundabout is in, because I really think that might be needed in the interim. Maybe not, but
That's going to be fun.
I think we should leave it. I just don't want to put money towards it if we think it might come down. So.
All right, any other questions?
Very good.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Is that all on the traffic, Mr.
Yes,
Febo?
we just wanted to sunshine those two ideas to you, and so staff can move forward. Everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir. The next item is our Discussion on capital improvement program.
Maybe I can preamble this before Kate gets up. Good fiscal governance requires us first to live within our means, and second, to follow a budgetary plan. Most budgets involve two elements. One is its operating budget, and the second is a capital budget. The science of budgeting, at least on the capital side, requires staff to go beyond a one-year view and to use a 3-year window of doability. Kate's going to present for you our capital plan for the next 3 years. It's important to realize, even though this is a 3-year window, only the first year is really budgeted, and the other 2 years are always subject to the ever-changing priorities as well as having money. So the first year is the only set-in-stone element, and years 2 and 3 are priorities for coming years. So I think Kate's going to present the capital improvement plan for the next 3 years.
Well, Kevin gave you a very good overview, so I'm still going to go through it anyway. First of all, I want to thank Marilyn Perigin, who helped me this year in putting together the plan draft. This was her first year working on it, so we worked together, but she did the majority of the work with it this year. Also, I wanted to note the last multi-year plan that was adopted was in November of 2011. That was for fiscal year 12, 13, 14, and 15. We actually had a plan draft completed last year, but due to the timing of when it got done, and we were in the middle of the FY14 budget process, we just didn't bring it forward for formal approval, but we did have a draft prepared. So we started from that point as we moved forward with our new plan draft. Basically, the capital improvement program, as Mr. DeFebo had said, it's a multi-year plan. It allows us to look at proposed projects, their expenditures, and most of those are going to be related to public facilities, equipment replacement, and infrastructure needs. Anything on the capital plan is going to have a cost of about $25,000 or more and have a lifetime of at least 5 years or more. And that's a aggregate cost. So if we're purchasing some equipment that in and of itself individually is less than $25,000, the bulk of it together exceeds $25,000. For instance, when we're replacing the computer data terminals for the police department or tasers or that sort of thing, we do include that as a capital project because over a multi-year span of replacements, we're exceeding the $25,000 level, and hopefully they'll have a lifetime of more than 5 years. But when it comes to computers, different technology things, that's kind of questionable. The plan also identifies estimated costs and, as Mr. DeFebo mentioned, potential sources for revenue, or at least we hope. And then we have the ability to plan ahead and save money for those projects, those larger projects, like a road project, or as we did in this last year, the radio system, the public safety radio system replacement. We have vehicle equipment replacement for the police department we had saved for, the municipal facilities improvements that we have planned, and then also some technology upgrades and enhancements. We were able to save over $5 million over a couple of years because we knew that these particular projects and costs were forthcoming. And so that strategy actually started back in 2009, and I think it started with the ITA refunding. And we started doing it toward debt payments, kind of setting money aside a little bit at a time to help cover those future debt payments down the road. And as I mentioned, the multi-year plan also includes the debt service payments on past capital projects. Basically, the capital plan includes the current budget year, which we're currently in fiscal year 14, so that particular portion of the CIP is already adopted and set in place. But then it also includes the next 3 years. And all projects proposed are reevaluated, as Mr. DeFebo said, during each of the next 3 budget years. So we will adjust as priorities need and as funding is available, it's a flexible plan in that respect. We will also continue to scrutinize the replacement of equipment and vehicles. When we look at those things, there are certain factors that we need to determine. We look at maintenance history of a vehicle or equipment, the mileage, the age, its operational safety. We will also look at whether or not a particular piece of equipment is still adequate for the purpose that we need it. You know, is there new technology out there? Can we find something that's more efficient at maybe an upfront cost, but down the road save us some money? And then we also will readjust based on the outcome of our annual strategic planning process. And as the strategic plan is set for the current year we're in, the next 5 years, and the next 15 years, the goals that the board had established through 2018 include a more diverse economy, more jobs. We want to focus on improved traffic flow, as we were just discussing in our first presentation with the Hennessy Way project. We look at community livability, and more specifically, a thriving downtown and riverfront, and then providing strong neighborhoods. And then we also consider our sustainable city government, and those would include technology upgrades, equipment replacement, and then facility improvements and maintenance. In 2013, or excuse me, in this current fiscal year, 2014, our specific top priorities are to continue to grow revenues without increasing taxes, maintain and improve the current level of services, continue focus on the stormwater mitigation and sidewalk programs, and then we had the major road project of Hennessy Way realignment. As a total investment, including all debt payments that are required in the CIP, the 4-year total is over $83.1 million. Of that $83.1 million, 64% of it is our debt payment for past capital projects. And of that 64%, 30% is covered by somebody else. WKU and Warren County provide us funding to reimburse us on some of the debt payments that we do have. So that brings our debt down to the city to around $37 million, and our actual total project cost with the city's portion of debt at $67.1 million. So you can see we do have the ability to use other people's money to cut our costs down. And this is a 4-year look at the total cost. We also include in the capital program, we distinguish between the sources of funding. So we have general fund, we have special revenues and capital project funds, we have our enterprise and internal service funds, and then we have any projects that we may look to finance. And in this year's budget, we had about $1.1 million we were looking to finance related to the radio equipment system. But typically we try not to finance. That's the whole point of saving money ahead of time, is to avoid having to finance costs down the road. But we have projected a couple road projects I'll go over in a minute that we may look at financing if we're unable to save enough money for those projects and it's deemed necessary to move forward with those projects. You'll note in fiscal year 14, if you see how under special revenues and capital funds, typically we run at a little over $4 million, but this year we're seeing about $3 million more than that. That's the saved money that we have planned over the last couple of years and we set aside in capital project funds. That's where it shows up in our sources of funding. It's general fund money initially, but it gets transferred into the capital projects or special revenue funds, and so we reflect that in the budget under the special revenue sources. And this year's spike, obviously, is basically due to the 2 major projects that we have, and we'll go over those in just a minute. The other thing we look at is debt funding sources. How much of the debt is covered by the general fund, how much by special revenues, and then how much by enterprise funds. And currently 64% is obviously general fund, the largest bulk of the project. Debt payments are paid through that. And again, this is net of any of the other agency participation that we receive. And then about 28% is funded by special revenue funds. That would be like the Fire Improvement Fund, our Police Improvement Fund, radio system, capital project type funds. And then 10% of it is our enterprise fund, and that would be the aquatics debt and currently the golf debt and our convention center debt. FY14, the two largest projects, as I started to mention earlier, the radio system at $3.3 million, and we were able to save 2.1 of that, or 2.2 of that, and finance the 1.1. And then the municipal facilities improvement projects, which is a little over $2 million, which $150,000 of that came from the Housing Choice Voucher Program. That can contribute toward the construction project that we have for relocation of our Neighborhood and Community Services Department. Some updates since the adoption of the fiscal year 14 budget that we did add to the capital program. The main one here is the relocation of the police evidence bulk storage. As you will find tonight on the agenda, we have a recommendation to sell the Cabell Drive facility, which has been used for police bulk storage since probably the 1990s, late 1990s. And we are looking to relocate that at the Fleet Division. That project has been underway, and we hope to finish it by the end of this month. We estimated that to run about $50,000. So that's a new item to the CIP that we did not have in the 14 budget, but we've used contingency funding to pay for it, and from the sale of Cabell Drive. We also had some allocated FY13 underspending toward the end of this last fiscal year. We had a couple budget amendments where we were able to move some additional money toward the Hennessy Way project, not knowing how much that would cost us. That $223,000 is actually underspending from the Small House Cave Mill Road project. If we don't spend it on Hennessy Way, we can certainly use it for another road project that we find needed at that time. And we also had the City Hall Enhanced Security Project, which came in at the latter part of fiscal year 13. So I'm adding it to the CIP for 14 as a way to give it a placeholder and identify that it was done. And then we had some sinkholes at the golf course that had to be replaced. In doing that, we found we needed to replace the liner at one of the irrigation pond there. Now, if you're looking at the whole budget for fiscal year 14, you'll note that of the $99.7 million of all funds, 18% of that budget is for capital. And for the general fund, of the $53.9 million of that budget, 16% is capital and debt service costs. And our forecasted years, obviously we're going to continue the stormwater and sidewalk projects. We do have 3 proposed road projects at this time. Obviously they're flexible as to when we do them or if we do them based on priorities, but we do have 3 listed. We also will continue to maintain and repair facilities and equipment, continue equipment replacement, and then continue advancing and improving our technology and resources. We'll also be looking at some public safety facility updates, some equipment and technology upgrades. As I mentioned, we need to replace our mobile data computers and some tablets in the police and fire departments, and in-car cameras and tasers for the police department. Those are multi-year cost projects so that we can phase in the total cost for those projects over a few years. And then also we're looking at the possibility of a bay addition at the airport station. I guess they have 3 trucks there now, and they're looking to house, they've only got 2 bays, so we would add an additional bay there and some additional air control systems. I can't remember the exact name, but something else that goes along with the airport station. And then under Parks and Recreation, just a few of projects that we have highlighted. Most of these are looking at boosting the participation at our parks and enriching our quality of life for the community. We're looking at hopefully repurposing Hobson Grove Park with some additional playground equipment and some other field adjustments. And then adding a new community soccer field somewhere on the west side of the community. And then looking at updating the largest park shelter that we have at Lambkin Park and adding some playground equipment. And those are obviously the out years. As we look at the out years, and we look at FY15, of the $5.5 million of projects that we have planned for that year, we're sort of equally divided among our strategic plan goals here: the community livability, improved traffic flow, and sustainable city government. as we look at fiscal year 14 and we've got, or 16, and we've got $8.2 million proposed for that budget. That is primarily a boost to improve traffic flow. That would be a couple of the larger road projects that we had initially thought might come forward at some point in the future. And then at fiscal year 17, the $4.8 million right now is heavily geared towards sustainable city government, but we're looking at a $950,000 fire truck replacement in that year. And as we develop more into next year's budget, you'll see the FY17 proposed plans will develop a little bit further. They're still very preliminary at this point. As a comparison to past years, looking at fiscal year 9 to fiscal year 17, and we're looking at the total CIP net, the ability to have other people pay some of our debt. We had a high in this year's fiscal year CIP, and again, that's due to the radio project and the municipal facilities projects we'd already saved money for. And then we had a low back in FY11, primarily due to the economy. We knew that we couldn't spend a lot of money on projects, and so we didn't. And you'll kind of see that trend. We're hopeful that we're getting out of the recession and can put investment back into the community as we move forward. If we just look at the general fund, again, looking at the total CIP with the debt, net, other people's money, our low was in fiscal year 10, and then we have, again, a high in fiscal year 14, primarily the municipal facilities projects and radio system project that we have. But you can see that although we have a spike in fiscal year 14, we're basically trending about the same at around 5 to 6 million, 8 million in total with debt. Also looking at general fund, when you're looking at the amount of cash we put in toward projects based on the existing debt that we already have, the debt remains fairly consistent. That's the middle bar, the middle set of blocks you've got right there at just under $6 million. There is a slight decline as we move forward, as we're able to refinance and get some better savings with some of our debt costs. And then the front set of blocks are our actual project costs, new project costs. And you'll see obviously FY11 was significantly lower than as we move forward. But again, other than the spike here, this year we're basically trending at about the same amount, around a $2.5 million general fund capital project budget. And just to reiterate, the capital improvement program identifies the proposed future capital projects for the next 3 years and into the future. It is consistently ever evolving. We'll never, other than the fiscal year that we're currently in, it is not set in stone. It will change. It will change based on community needs and other priorities. And as has been mentioned already, all future proposed projects and capital purchases will be reevaluated in each of their respective years. And after each of the budget adoption, as we are here today, we will then present to you a new multi-year plan with those prioritized changes included. And these are just a few of our past projects that we had. Just wanted to highlight a few of those. Does anyone have any questions?
Just want to add, great job by Kate and Marilyn, very thorough. You can see our values are always the same. We tried to eschew debt. As you can see, our debt is fairly flat. And so we don't like to go into debt. And we don't like to raise taxes. And we try to live within our means and still invest in the community. So I think we've accomplished that in the last couple of years. And we hope to do that in the future, too.
I think the entire commission recognizes how hard you guys work on living within our means and not putting an extra burden on the citizens, still providing those services, like you say. I think it's done a great job.
Thank you. As we continue to move forward, we'll continue to save money and set that aside for future projects as needed. If there are no changes, we'll bring this plan forward for consideration of approval at your next commission meeting on November 5th.
Just
Any
one,
comments?
just one more
Yes, sir.
comment. The spike that we mentioned in 14 is basically money we've saved up since 10 and 11 that we've socked away and put aside, and 14 is the year we're spending it. So it's another, for the public, another explanation of that odd-looking spike in 14. So it's
Frankly, we use a metaphor
cash money.
of the socks. We were envisioning a grandmother putting money away, saving in her socks for a project in the future. That's what we've been doing in various socks that the 800 megahertz sock and capital improvement facility sock. And
Yeah, I just didn't want anybody to think all of a sudden in this fiscal year we got crazy and spending a lot of money, but it's money, it's projects we've been planning for, and we're using cash that we've saved up over the last 3 or 4 years.
It's always better if you plan for it.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I believe that's the last item we had on our work session, unless anybody on the Board of Commission had a policy initiative that they wanted to bring forth. I think Joe has a date, so we'll return at 7 o'clock.